You're listening to a Roddenberry Podcast.
Don't touch that dial. We'll be right back. And now for a brand new show we hope you'll like. Gene-ology, a Roddenberry Podcast.
Episode 84, Taylor's Woman. Welcome to Mission Log Gene-ology. I'm Earl Green.
And I'm Ashley Thomas.
Each week on Gene-ology, we hope to earn our graduation robes from the Gene Roddenberry School of Thought, looking for the morals, meanings, and messages that would eventually make their way into his most famous later work, Star Trek.
But did we graduate from the Ella West campus, or is it Ella East, or perhaps this is the Ella Southwest campus? Ugh.
This may be the community college, I don't know. More on that in a bit.
But before we get to trivia on this week's episode, folks, let me take a brief moment to encourage you to join our Patreon or follow us on YouTube or leave a review wherever you're listening to us. Patreon is your gateway to all things Mission Log, including exclusive access to the unedited version of our show, aka the VAM, and our private Discord where you can interact with us, your hosts, Earl and me, and as well as the other Roddenberry Podcast hosts during scheduled live chats, along with occasional screenings. You can access all of this for a mere $1 a month, but hey, nobody's going to be mad at you if you want to throw us some more. So head over to patreon.com/missionlog to see what tier works for you and join the conversation. By the way, folks, reviews help our shows more than you could possibly know. Even if you can't come up with the words for a written review, one of those 5-star readings really does go a long way to tell the algorithm that you like us, you love us, you want some more of us, that other people might like, love, and want more of us too. We are counting on our loyal genealogists to help us spread the word. And now, this week's trivia. Earl, do you have some trivia? Taylor's version?
I might indeed. The first thing you'll notice is, hey, Paladin's back. Did you miss him?
I remember when we first started recording about Wrangler, I said, when do we get back to Have Gun Will Travel? And the year later, here we are.
Yeah, it took us a minute.
Yeah.
But this stretch of Gene-ology will cover the last 5 episodes of Have Gun Will Travel that Gene Roddenberry wrote. With his long contract with Screen Gems behind him, Gene was back in the world of freelance TV writing. So it only makes sense that he quickly made it known to the makers of the one show still running that he had written for in the past that he was available. As Have Gun Will Travel was going into its 6th and final season, the show's producers were quick to avail themselves of his help. But Gene had been gone for quite some time. During his Screen Gems years, he had written only 2 episodes, one each for the 4th and 5th seasons, and the show he came back to had changed a bit. There were new producers at what modern TV would call the showrunner level. They had very specific ideas on how to keep Have Gun Will Travel going. Not that it mattered, because the star of the show only reluctantly agreed to do that one last season. Richard Boone was ready to get off the horse, put down the 6-shooter, and explore other genres of storytelling. But he was offered enough of a raise that he relented and signed on for one last year of being Paladin, because if nothing else, it would put what he called go-to-hell money in his bank account. Enough of it that anyone who offered him a part in a project that he didn't think was worth his time could safely be told where to put that offer. Taylor's Woman aired on September 22nd, 1962 on CBS, and it was the 2nd episode of the 6th season. For the 1962-63 American TV season, Have Gun Will Travel found itself up against The Lawrence Welk Show on ABC and NBC's Saturday Night the Movies, in color, if you had one of them fancy color TV sets already in 63. Miss Lydia Moss, who definitely wants to be Taylor's Woman, is none other than Kathy Brown. Gene's already worked with her. She was Marie in the Shannon episode The Pickup just a year earlier. And he will work with her again very soon. She also appears as a different character in Gene's Have Gun Will Travel script, Marshal of Sweetwater, which aired in November 1962. But we'll be covering it next week. Of course, after that, she will instigate a Pitcairn pillow fight in the 3rd season Star Trek episode Wink of an Eye, where she plays Deela. By the way, Pitcairn pillow fight, terrible name for a band.
I mean, I still kind of love it.
As Thad Taylor, we have Carey Jr., who has been in not one but two of Gene's previous Have Gun episodes. He hounded Paladin as Sheriff Goodfellow, definitely not a good fellow, way back in The Road to Wickenburg, while in The Posse, he was another sheriff who seemed very reluctant to enforce any kind of law. Our other two guest stars each have notable career highlights. Clyde Moss is played by Tom Hennessy, a stuntman turned actor who was the Creature himself in Revenge of the Creature, as in Revenge of the Creature from the Black Lagoon, while the seemingly nondescript desk clerk at the Hotel Carlton is none other than Olan Soule, who has a career as storied on camera as off. Until Conroy came along, Olan was the animated voice of Batman, playing that role not just in The Adventures of Batman, but just about anywhere else Batman appeared in cartoon form. Scooby-Doo, Sesame Street, and how about the entire run of Super Friends? Ironically, Olan once appeared in the live-action Batman series as a TV newsman. Finally, our director is also an actor of some renown. You might have heard of him. His name is Richard Boone. Of course, Richard was also the star of the show, playing Paladin the whole time, and he had been directing episodes on and off since season 3. He would also go on to direct several episodes of his Playhouse anthology show, the season after Have Gun went off the air, The Richard Boone Show. This is the only episode of Gene's that Richard directed.
Act 1. At the Hotel Carlton, Paladin and one of his many lady friends are sharing a drink and a cigar in the lobby. Thad Taylor enters the scene and shows Paladin his own business card. Bum 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 bum. Cue the business card music. Thad has been quote-unquote backed into a corner by Lydia, his housekeeper. He brought her here to San Francisco on false pretenses to marry her, but he's actually here to hire Paladin to help him break off the engagement. Lydia enters the scene, pronounces harsh judgment on Paladin, and tells Thad to come with her, away from Mr. Paladin's type. That is until Paladin says he'll take Mr. Taylor up on his proposition. $2,500 for that piece of pasture on the back lot. Before the title is transferred, that is. $2,500 more upon transfer. Lydia changes her tune pretty quickly. $5,000 is a pretty good deal, but Mr. Paladin needs to see the property immediately, he says. Lydia and Thad say that the stage leaves in half an hour, so Paladin agrees, packs his things, and passes his drink to his would-be lady of the hour. They arrive at the ranch and are greeted by Lydia's brother Clyde. He asks about the lack of a ring on Lydia's hand, and Thad tells him to mind his business. Thad is about to enter the house when Lydia chides him about his dusty boots. Thad removes them obediently. Paladin is about to enter with a lit cigar when Clyde informs him that Lydia doesn't allow smoking in the house. Thad reminds Clyde again to shut up, shutting up, as the great philosopher Bugs Bunny would say, and brandishes a stick of kindling at him. Lydia tells her brother to move along. Paladin requests a cool glass of water from Lydia, and she goes off to oblige. Paladin begins blowing smoke rings in the living room, sitting down on the couch. Thad remarks that a piece of kindling will cut any man down to size. Paladin says Thad ought to try that with Lydia, too. Thad objects. He just can't do that with a woman. Paladin says that theory will probably result in women being the last thing civilized by man. Paladin goes on to quote Milton, saying, "Heaven's best gift is a woman perfected." But, he grumbles, Milton forgot to mention what a hellish job it is perfecting one of them. Homer said it better. A creature with the form of a goddess, the walk of a queen, and the heart of a tyrant. Lydia, overhearing all this, suggests that if he and Thad ride out to the acreage right now, Mr. Paladin could leave on the 6 o'clock stage. She hands Paladin the glass of water, but he's lucky she didn't throw it at him. Paladin decides he's cooled off enough. He'd rather have hot coffee instead, and hands the glass back to Lydia. Thad has the look of a man who's expecting hell to rain down upon Paladin's head. Later at dinner, Paladin continues to insult Lydia, blaming her for him moving his own plate as she served and commented on how it must have been an honest mistake that she's overseasoned the food. When Lydia protests, Paladin says, just because a hen can lay a perfect egg does not entitle her to crow like a rooster. Lydia's had enough and tells Thaddeus to send Paladin away. Paladin says that it's bold of her to assume that she has any say in this transaction at all. That's when Lydia informs Paladin that she and Thad are setting to be married, or were when he came along. Paladin laughs out loud at this and says it's no wonder that Thad's friends like to come around with a sense of humor like Lydia's. It's so authentically Western. It's an impossibly tall tale. Surely they could not be setting to be married. Paladin continues to laugh at his own joke, but Lydia is fuming. Thad needs to run Paladin off, or else she's done. And with that, Lydia storms into the kitchen. Paladin reminds Mr. Taylor that the ball's in his court now. She's given him the decision. She could leave now with her pride, and she's not been run off or jilted. But Lydia is still in earshot and asks what all that's about. Taylor says that he needs to have a talk with Paladin. Now it's Taylor's turn to give Paladin an earful. He brought him here to do a job, and he's thrown the decision back in his lap. Paladin says that a man can be hired to do anything for another man except make his decisions for him. But Taylor goes on to say that Paladin needs to break it off with Lydia for him. He doesn't want her screeching or her yapping or her nagging ugly face. But that won't be necessary now. Lydia has heard it all. She'll leave as quickly as Clyde can arrange a place for her to go. She'll keep her nagging, ugly face out of his sight. Act 2. Lydia brings Paladin coffee the next morning. She's barely holding her composure. Paladin apologizes for his behavior, but Lydia wishes to thank him. No woman would ever be happy with a man who's a weakling. But Lydia sees something in Paladin that she wants to point out too. She saw him with that woman in the lobby of the hotel. That woman was lighting his cigar and pouring him a drink and just begging for him to notice her. Men love to play the great Raja, but she can't do that. She's got too much pride for it. She then reaches into her boot and pulls out a wad of cash, $300, and offers it to Paladin. Does she really have to say it? Paladin says that he'll take a guess on most anything, but not right at this moment. Lydia says, if you saw your father beat your mother into the grave, and you had 5 brothers just as shiftless and weak as him, and you grew up the only girl, the only one with any stomach for work, the only one to stand up on her hind legs with any pride and decency, well, then you might get this quote-unquote backwards idea of the place of women and men in things. She wants to be a proper female kind of woman, and she wants Thad Taylor to love her. Paladin starts his lessons. Lesson number 1. Never touch a man, because your touch should be as rare as a fine jewel, only given to a very special person at a very special moment. Lydia objects to the practicality of this lesson. It doesn't even make sense. Paladin says that lesson number 2 is to forget about logic. Paladin then comments on Lydia's Princess Leia buns, asking how in the world did she get her hair into this horrible condition. Paladin then stands her up and turns her around, taking stock and shaking his head. Lydia experiences a makeover montage complete with Old West curling irons and ribbons, plucking eyebrows, and attempting to make her hair more like that of a quote-unquote proper female kind of woman. Lydia rounds on Paladin, exclaiming that she told him that she doesn't know how to do hair properly. Paladin says that now she's talking like a woman, blaming it all on the man. Lydia professes her undying hatred for Paladin. Paladin says now she's really talking, and her eyebrows are still a mess. It hurts to pluck them. Then don't, Paladin replies. Lydia starts to unleash another verbal assault on Paladin, but then stops, replying, "You are quite right about my brows. I should have seen it." Paladin critiques her response, saying it needs more conviction. This continues back and forth until she gets the response about right. "Isn't it strange how you seem to understand my little problems? I wonder what that means." "That was a little better," says Paladin. Lydia fumes. "That was a lot better." "Was it?" asks Paladin. "Not if you don't think so, Mr. Paladin," replies Lydia sweetly. Later, Lydia has mostly tamed her hair. Paladin says that if she piles it higher, It'll make her face look more slender. Do I have to be a liar to be a woman? She asks. You'll know the moment for honesty when it comes, and it'll make truth out of every illusion you've ever created. Clyde knocks on the door and enters carrying an armload of packages, cursing Paladin for making him pick up all the frilly stuff for Lydia. He had to knock Ed Bigley's teeth down his throat to get him to shut up. Paladin defers to Lydia, who turns on the charm. Isn't it wonderful how good Clyde is about helping me? He's always been the sweetest of all my brothers. Clyde is cooled by this response and says just to let him know whenever she's ready to leave. Lydia is so surprised that her new feminine wiles worked, even on her brother. You're all just like children, aren't you? She says to Paladin, who seems to have never considered this prospect before. It's not only bad, it's foolish to use a whip on a child. Referring, of course, to her own previous shrewish ways. Paladin congratulates her on her graduation from the LOS College of, Pig Paladin School of Womanly Wiles, and presents her with the boxes Clyde brought up as her quote-unquote graduation robes. Act 3. Thad Taylor is pacing in his living room, looking worried, while Clyde remains seated. Paladin descends the stairs. Clyde reassures Taylor that he'll send someone back with his surrey from the stage depot. Just then, Lydia descends the staircase, looking drop-dead gorgeous in her new fancy duds. She says that she forgot to thank Mr. Taylor for his kindness to her. She offers him her hand, and he takes it as she says goodbye. Mr. Taylor's eyes look like they might be popping out of his head, and saying, "Well, you put yourself out there for me, too." Paladin ushers her along, saying they'll be late. Taylor offers an apology for his behavior, but Lydia says that's okay. A bachelor doesn't want to be tied down, and she understands things like that now. He asks if she's got a proper place to go, but Lydia assures him that she's fine. She's going to San Francisco with Mr. Paladin. Oh, he's not happy to hear that at all. Paladin says that she's going as far as the San Francisco stage with him, but Lydia disagrees. She's decided that Paladin is looking very Mickey-outy tonight, and so, as the great philosopher Peggy March says, I will follow him. Taylor says to Clyde that Paladin did something to Lydia. She's changed, but Clyde is having none of this, and in a blow worthy of One Punch Man, sends Paladin Wile E. Coyote style through the door. Paladin staggers up and tries to fight Clyde, but he might as well be punching a mountain. Clyde delivers another punch that sends Paladin quite literally head over feet, though not quite in the way that Alanis Morissette meant by that song, but you tell Gene that. Taylor pulls Lydia aside and says that she doesn't really love Paladin. She's got to marry a man to properly love him and have a house and a kitchen and maybe children. And Paladin staggers again to his feet and yells at Clyde, "Now you've done it, and you'd be a fool to charge me again." Clyde takes a flying leap. Paladin hits the deck, and Clyde lands face first into the water pump. He's out cold. Thad sends Paladin packing and tells him he's being decent by giving him his fee. Lydia says that Paladin should have just stayed in San Francisco and not butted in the first place. Paladin says that retort requires a very specific response, but he can't think of one right now. He bids them farewell and replies, "What God has joined together, let no man put asunder." The end.
All right, Ashley, very good job with this. I am glad that you brought this up in the recap, but this lady, as a hairstyle such as Carrie Fisher, has never suffered. What do you even call that? The ear-mounted basket weave? What is that?
Beats me. I have never had quite enough hair to be able to do that. I remember even when I had long hair as a kid and trying to figure out how did Princess Leia do her hair that way. Turns out it's a wig, if I understand correctly. Though some folks I know have managed to pull it off, so more power to you. But it looked like a couple of cinnamon buns smacked on either side.
It's like there is a yeoman Janice Rand sticking out of each of your ears, lady. What do you even call that?
I don't know what the proper term is. I think now it's just everybody just calls it Princess Leia buns.
Yeah, but this was more elaborate than that because it was braided within that. It wasn't just coiled. It was like,
yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, you gotta have a lot of hair to do that. So, props to her.
Yeah. Okay, so Thaddeus, being notably sus with his hand inside his jacket, coming up on Paladin from behind, I'm like, dude, that is one sure way to wind up dead. I was stunned.
Yeah.
He made it through the teaser still breathing.
I definitely had concerns about that. It's like, bro, you are not doing this the right way. It's funny because the first couple of times I watched the episode and then I get to the end credits and it said, and it would see Hey Boy being credited. I was like, Hey Boy wasn't in this episode. Well, he was. He was in the background of that one scene.
Okay.
Had no lines. Still got a credit. That's how you do. Good job, bro.
I too had to go back and double check that. And I think the same is true for Olan Soule. He's credited as the desk clerk. I don't think he got any lines. I think he was just, hey, that's good work if you can find it. So good job, Cam Tong, for showing up on the day, getting paid.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I had to go back and rewatch that myself because I got to the end credits and I was like, Hey Boy was in this?
I think our friend John Billingsley has a saying for that he used to say to Dominic Keating on Enterprise. Long day off and the checks still come. Something like that.
Hey, no lines to remember means you can't forget your lines.
Yeah, yep.
Now, fun fact, when Thaddeus is just rambling on about his plan, that face that Paladin is making when Paladin says, what are you talking about? That's the same face I was making at that moment.
Yeah, I'm like, bro, we can't read your mind. Could you please elaborate?
This was a pioneering piece of interactive television in that regard.
Yep.
Now, it very quickly gets problematic.
Yeah.
It very quickly gets very problematic. Thaddeus makes this grand statement, like he's the kind of guy who's going to do this. Length of kindling, meaning this piece of wood he had in his hand. No man will stand up to this. Paladin says, has it occurred to you that a length of kindling might work just as well on her? And in that moment, I was thinking, please do not let this be the exit sign into Waveland country again. A moment later, Thaddeus says, a man can't just do that with a woman. And I was like, thank you, Thad.
Thank you. Thank you for not being a terrible man. Goodness.
And yet here shortly, I will get around to why I dislike Thaddeus more than anyone else in this story.
Yes, there's that too. Go ahead.
As terrible as Paladin is being to literally everyone around him in this show, he makes zero friends in this story. I do kind of like that he is forcing Thaddeus' hand on this. He's putting everyone on the spot equally. I just kind of hate that he's being an absolute pig in order to do it.
Yeah. This is a situation where he's like, I don't know why the hell you guys want me in on this, but sure, I'll be horse's patoot for $1,000. Why not?
Hey, good work if you can find it.
Some people do it for free.
True. Yeah, but you get what you pay for. That's. Then there's the scene where Thaddeus is just trying to lay down the law to Paladin. Okay, this is when I realized that he was actually in the running to be the worst person in this story. Mm-hmm. That moment right before the ad break where it is clear that Lydia has overheard everything, I felt terrible for her. Mm-hmm. I was thinking to myself, I can make this a really short episode. Lydia leaves and gets out of this situation full stop. Now, we're only at about the 12-minute mark there, but I'm sure you can sell some more aftershave with that time.
Yeah, sure, why not?
It's like, girl, run. That being said, if she did that, we would be deprived of this amazing work of hers in the first scene of Act 2.
Yeah.
She is trying to be the perfect hostess and also trying not to completely fall apart.
Yeah.
I seriously, go back and watch that opening scene of Act 2. Watch her even when she is not talking. That is amazing. I mean, her intensity kind of makes you forget Richard Boone's in the room. And then when the dam breaks and it all comes pouring out, I've got too much pride for that. It's like, yes, and this is why you should run out that door after this speech and never come back.
Yeah. I would say, girl, you're about to lose all that pride here in a minute.
I think she gets her groove back by the end of the story just a little bit.
A little. I think that's fair, but it's a bit of a road to get there, and I wasn't real happy about a lot of that. So
okay, so we've got a montage. We've got a hairstyling montage.
Yeah, with some comical music intercut with her being stressed out and Richard Boone laughing.
Yeah, in some alternate universe, there is a version of this episode where Paladin is treating Lydia to a fabulous makeover instead of being an overbearing pig. I mean, this lady needs a spa day.
Yeah.
What stressed me out during this scene, in addition to Paladin being a fuzzy pig? Okay, Richard Boone, or whoever is overseeing the editing of this, back away slowly from those page turn wipes, man. It is like somebody just got himself a Video Toaster 4000, and by God, they're going to use the Falling Sheep wipe or the Kiki Stockhammer Fairy Godmother wipe for everything. And any of you who edited video in the 90s, you know what I'm talking about. But from one editor to another, take it easy there, partner.
Yeah, I was actually really impressed with all the page turns. I'm like, oh, okay, somebody was doing something neat in the editing room. I didn't expect that for 1962. That's
I mean,
cool.
it was a novel effect to achieve in 1962. I don't think I needed it 35 times in a 1 minute period.
Yeah, they definitely went to town on that. They were having a good time.
You can do what kind of wipe? Oh my gosh, we're gonna do that 35 times in 1 minute. They make George Lucas look like he's showing restraint. Okay, now Paladin gets this line, "You'll know when the moment for honesty comes, and you'll make truth out of every illusion you've created." Did this guy just get back from a job on Talos 4? I'd rather be watching that episode right now.
I have so many issues with this scene, Earl. This whole idea that, and I said this when we covered Ella West. I said this when we've covered other episodes that play with this same idea that man must tell woman how to be a woman.
Yeah, they're basically humping the leg of Pygmalion.
Yes. When I was watching this episode last night with Mr. Nerdy Blogger. Mr. Nerdy Blogger's like, wait, so Paladin, a man, gets to tell her how to be a woman? How does that work? And I was like, it doesn't, honey. It never has.
Unless Paladin spends his downtime just being fabulous. And, we did have that dressing gown a while back that was like the groovy gunman. It's like... Yeah, that's right. Paladin has a whole life that we know nothing about.
Yeah. I mean, he's always wearing those super cool groovy smoking jackets, but this, I just could feel my blood boiling the entire time. Like, she's struggling with her hair and to dress and look a certain way, because I have been in that situation where I have been told you must dress and do your hair this way because you're a woman, therefore. And I'm like, this is stupid. I don't like any of this. I don't understand why this is required. And I pushed back as hard on that as I could, just because I'm like, this isn't me. I don't like it. Why do I have to do this?
See?
And it was absolutely infuriating. And so, like, I'm getting triggered watching this because I'm so angry on Lydia's behalf. Yeah.
It's annoying that she has to go through all that to get to the point that she does by the end. But first, she gets to practice her new way of guiding the narrative, shall we say, on her brother. We'll leave whenever you're ready, of course. Oh, no, we'll leave when you're ready. Just let me know. I was like, oh, no, it's their podcast recording day, isn't it? That sounds very familiar.
Yeah. Well, that scene was really interesting because she says right after that, she's like, oh, you're all like children, aren't you? Like, oh. She's now discovered a superpower. You want me to play this game? I'll play this game. And I'll get what I want.
I believe the great philosopher Darth Vader once said, when I left you, I was but the student. Now I am the master.
I have altered the deal. Pray I do not alter it further. Indeed.
A Paladin gets punched right out of the house.
Wile E. Coyote.
Yeah,
style.
I mean,
I watched that. I was like, good grief. Who's he fighting? The Hulk?
it's like, wait a minute. I thought Dan Blocker was in the other show, but I'm so glad this happened. I thought it was kind of silly. Of course, this is a fight for comic effect. And so this thing where he's basically waving the red cape in front of Clyde to get Clyde to charge and knock himself out cold on the water pump. Okay, I get it. Paladin is our big damn hero. We're in 1962 watching some of the last vestiges of 1950s primetime TV. Paladin's got to get his groove back. He's got to get his back in this fight. But overall, I kind of love that we get this hint that maybe after all of this, Lydia has outthought every man in this story. I do like that. She might not get the short end of the stick after all. She really hasn't had to change that much. She still gets to tell Thaddeus, wipe off your shoes before you come in.
Mm-hmm.
So she's played everyone. She is the smartest person in the room. I think this may be my favorite version of Ella West, but I'm sure we'll have more to say on that in the next segment, because there's still lots of stuff to wade through before we get to that conclusion. So, Ashley.
Yeah, so Earl.
Taylor's woman. Should she be commiserating somewhere with Browning's woman? Why do these women not get their own names?
I mean, Eve and Lydia.
Yeah.
They have names. Use them.
I have a feeling this episode stirred feelings in both of us.
Indeed.
On far more things than that topic.
Yes.
So who wants to jump on the soapbox and take the first swing?
Ooh. I'll let you go first, Earl, because I feel like you're going to be a little more organized with this than I am. I feel like I'm just going to start shouting phrases. So why don't you take the first stab, bro?
Okay, well, I will endeavor to make this something unlike trying to listen to Animal from the Muppet Show going,
yeah.
What bothers me about this episode is not the nagging that we are told is happening.
Mm-hmm.
It's the negging that we can see is happening.
Ooh. Elaborate.
Early in the episode, I was worried to death that this show was just going to be Paladin upholds the bro code. I actually do feel like that's exactly what happened for a lot of the show, except he's also apparently handing out hairstyling and makeup tips, so I have a lot of questions about Paladin at this point.
Yeah.
Negging is an idea that is circulated in the internet cesspool called the manosphere. It is a repugnant relic from pickup artist culture. It's the idea that if a woman is showing no interest in talking to you as a man in a social setting, like a bar or a party or whatever, you give her some backhanded compliment that's actually kind of an insult, and supposedly this will rattle her and lower her defenses and make her less sure of herself, which works only if, she's not already aware of the crap men try to pull in the interest of getting laid. Now, granted, Paladin is not trying to steal Lydia from Thaddeus, so at least that's a very minor plus. But it's also not the first time Gene has put this into the mouths of characters who are supposed to be the heroes of the piece. Paladin did it to Ella West. Pitcairn did it to Wavelin. Jefferson Drum did some of this to Madame Farrow. I picked up on this, and I know some of our listeners and some of our Gene-ology After Dark participants picked up on this as well, way back at Ella West. But it's really on display here. It's front and center. And even if Paladin is trying to achieve a better result than what he has been asked to deliver, even if he is trying to play Cupid instead of breaking Lydia and Thaddeus up as requested, the behavior he's exhibiting to achieve that is reprehensible. But that's very much in line for the late 50s and the shallow end of the 60s where this show falls. And it's so that complaint, I'm leaving that there. And let everyone make of that what they will. It's not behavior that the hero of the piece should be engaging in. But I get it. We're borrowing equally from Pygmalion and Cyrano de Bergerac here. And it's the early 60s. So perhaps I shouldn't be that surprised to find it there. It is extremely annoying. I brought my bucket of popcorn, so you go.
Okay.
We're going to take turns speeding this episode up.
First of all, Thad, bro, you talk about how Lydia has backed you into a corner. I'm like, okay, I'm aware that this takes place, what, like 1870 something?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how often it occurred back then, but she backed you into the corner and made you propose?
That he's her employer.
Right.
And so that means he had to open the door for that to happen because the power dynamic is already not in her favor.
Right.
And also the power dynamic back then makes this really icky.
Yeah, really. But also because she has such like a commanding personality. The episode description described him as henpecked. But I couldn't like, wait a minute. She's your employee, but she also has backed you into a corner. And also you somehow, like, you have agreed to this? Like, I don't understand how we got here. That just seems really weird to me on, like, 5 different levels.
Yeah, a little bit of backstory, maybe in place of the Wile E. Coyote fight that Paladin gets into with Clyde at the end. Well, that would have been a good use of that time. Yeah. And maybe shave that makeover montage in half.
Yeah.
Please, with all those wipes. Anyway.
Yeah. So that one, I can't stand a coward. Like, say what you mean. And if you don't mean it, don't say it. Like, I hate that. It makes me livid even thinking about it. So he feels trapped by this relationship, but he's not saying anything. I mean, like, I hate using the term man up. But, I mean, I don't know what else to say to this guy.
Oh, I will have many things to say to this guy on the other side of here, on the other side of the point that you're making here. I'll shut up.
Well,
now.
No, you're good. I'm excited to hear what you got to say. So I'm already like not impressed with this dude at all. And like, but you're going to hire Paladin, who is a gunman, but you're going to hire a guy whose business card says have gun will travel to break up with your fiance with you. Like, do you think she's that dangerous?
Is he marrying Ella West? That almost would have made...
Like...
Oh, we just made Ella West better!
Hey! I could at least maybe understand it if she was rootin' and tootin' and Yosemite Samantha, but no. Like, she's just stern. So, I don't understand why Paladin even needs to be involved. And frankly, Paladin doesn't either. So I'll at least give him that. Point number 1. I've already talked a little bit about this whole makeover thing, but some of the statements made in this episode, I'm just like, this like makes me like grind my teeth and clench my jaw because I'm so furious at everything I'm hearing. I would love to hear your comments on Thad.
Okay. I am finally going to get around to telling everyone why I find Thaddeus the most dislikable person in this story.
By all means.
Lydia calls it. He's a weak man. But worse than that, he is the worst kind of partner. I love you. Now change everything about yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then why do you love them?
Yeah.
I really honestly kind of worry about them ending up together at the end of the story because I am still not sure that relationship has a future.
Yeah.
In that closing scene, we do see that her nature is going to reassert itself. What happens then? But more to the point, Thaddeus is being very dishonest in not bringing any of this up with her.
Mm-hmm.
As opposed to a random guy whose business card has theme music. If you're with someone and they make you profoundly uncomfortable, pump the brakes and have an honest discussion about the issues at hand. That never happens in this story.
Not at all.
We are shown an ending that I suppose could be mistaken for a happily ever after. But Thaddeus has still not been man enough to tell Lydia what about her previous behavior was making him uncomfortable. Until that discussion happens, whatever relationship they do have is on really thin ice. Now, so much of this podcast, back to week 2, when Norman first brought the masculinity script into the conversation, and it has been with us ever since, folks. We've been in this loose orbit around discussion of masculinity with frequent displays of toxic masculinity from characters who are villains, but also characters who the shows tell us are the heroes.
Yeah.
Real masculinity is not beating people up. It's not shooting at people. It's not about dominance. It's about being comfortable enough in your own skin to have some vulnerability, to let the shields down, to accept criticism, and to course correct. Do the work on yourself. Get help if you need to. There's no shame in that. It's about building others up and not feeling the need at every turn to tear them down to make yourself bigger. It's about not letting ego and insecurity and an unhealthy self-image do the driving. It's about being man enough to not insist that everyone think you are the man in the room. And this goes back to shows like Episode in Laredo. Back when I was criticizing the main guest character in that show, so worried about his manly man reputation, he's not raising his son. Boy, I told myself I was not going to get mad in the course of talking about this. Thinking back to that one, I get mad all over again.
With good reason.
But being comfortable enough in your own skin to not feel the need to beat other people down, to me, from a standpoint of 5 decades into having these particular chromosomes that I had at birth, that to me is what masculinity is. I will admit it's taken me an embarrassingly long time to reach that set of realizations because generation after generation, men raising boys keep on pushing the narrative that being a man is about all the things I just told you that being a man is not about.
Yeah.
Thaddeus is not meeting that bar in this episode. He's not much of a man. Lydia deserves better, frankly.
Yeah.
But he is a character in a TV show written about the late 1800s, written by a man born and raised in the 1930s. Those of us in the 21st century don't have that excuse. So, yeah, man up indeed. Be man enough to do better.
Yeah, yeah.
And here endeth my rant on that. I found Thaddeus annoying, pitiable, and infuriating all at the same time.
Right.
And Lydia deserves better than to be locked in with this guy.
Yeah. And folks, we know that we are talking about a show from the 1960s. We know things were different back then. That doesn't mean it was good or right.
In some cases, it may mean that it perpetuated the problem.
Yeah. And
that's why we talk about it.
Yeah. It's why it's worth pointing out. It's not like we're trying to reach for some low-hanging fruit here. Sadly, this kind of thing still persists.
Yeah.
And sadly, a lot of young men seem to be adopting these kinds of ideas. And again, this is why we talk about it. Because it's still a problem. So, yeah, so let's move on just a little bit because I don't want to keep busting Thad because yeah, he might have it coming, but Lydia tells Paladin some of her origin story of why she might be the way she is. I'm going to go back to the quote because I made sure this was one of the things when I was writing the recap. I really wanted to make sure that I had the exact line of dialogue because it was that good. She says, "If you saw your father beat your mother into the grave and you had 5 brothers just as shiftless and weak as him, and you grew up the only girl, the only one with any stomach for work, the only one to stand up on her hind legs with any pride and decency, well, then you might get this backwards idea of the place of men and women and things." Lydia has seen the fruits of a man being a bad man. It killed her mother, and it reared 5 brothers who, with the exception of perhaps Clyde, that we see here, are not good men, and Clyde may not be that great of a man if he thinks that he's got to beat everybody senseless. You see how Lydia got where she is. She's had to be tough to survive. She's had to have this quote-unquote backwards idea of women and men in things because she's seen what the frontwards looks like, taken to the nth degree. She has come from an abusive situation, and she learned pretty quick that the only person that she can count on to take care of her is her. Her mom's dead. Her dad's awful and abusive, and her brothers aren't much better. So, yeah, let Lydia be. Poor girl has suffered enough and doesn't deserve a weak man.
You know, one question I have been asking myself, and this is kind of tying into things I'll bring up in the wrap-up, is what are the messages, and if the messages are good, if they are something that speaks to the future, are they something that Gene intended to put there? And if not, did they almost wind up in spite of him? You repeating that line of Lydia's about her backstory, basically, actually it convinces me to give Gene a little bit of grace here and have some hope that the messaging was very intentional. Because what that line says, she talks about her father beat her mother into the grave and then proceeded to raise a bunch of sons who were as shiftless and weak as him. She associates that with what he did with weakness, not with strength.
I do love that line is there.
Yes.
You're not a big, strong man if you're beating people.
Yeah, and maybe this is not in my notes. I'm just kind of processing this in real time. That may be the pivot point on which this whole episode turns. That line right there. Gene understands the assignment. He knows what he's doing. And maybe he's atoning for Wavelin.
Maybe a little bit.
Yeah, we'll let you know, Gene. But it seems like he's definitely sliding something under the door to the audience.
I think that's the best line in the whole episode.
Yeah, it really is.
And I really appreciated the insertion of that because, you get where Lydia's coming from. You see why she's had to be harsh and not be a quote-unquote real, proper female kind of woman. And I hate that she views herself that way. And I hate that she lives in society that has forced her to view herself that way. Because what you have here is a woman who is a victim of abuse. She is perceiving that as a fault of hers, not as you had something really terrible happen to you, and you've had to be much stronger than other people have had to be. And you're fine just as you are. that's not the message that we get here. I think there is something maybe to be said where she is learning that unfortunately society's not going to change. It doesn't make it right, but here are the tools you need to navigate that to your advantage. And maybe that's something. I still don't like it. But, I mean, I suppose when what year did that Wrigley's gum ad? You don't have to beat your wife every night. Chew Wrigley's gum.
Oh.
What year was that, Earl?
Oh, yeah. That was in the 50s.
50s. I mean, if that is still that pervasive in society, then, this is maybe I hate to say it, this is maybe a guidebook for some poor woman watching this and seeing herself in Lydia's situation.
Yeah. And maybe this is as much messaging as Gene could slip past the network censors in this case.
Yeah.
We may not be giving him enough credit here.
Yeah. I mean, I have so many issues with, the same things I had issues with in Ella West in this episode about how women must dress and talk to men and be a certain way. I have so many issues with that. But at the same time, I kind of have to keep in the back of my mind, is this a survival guide?
So, Ashley.
So, Earl.
Morals, meanings, messages. Did anyone hit you like a Clyde haymaker?
I think what I said in discussion, which, like you, really kind of verbally processing it as we're talking, but I think sadly for some women in the audience in 1962, correct?
Yes.
Yes. So sadly for some women in the audience in 1962, this might have been a survival guide for dealing with weak and or abusive men.
Yeah.
Which, let me be clear. If you're abusive, you are weak. Go to counseling. Stop doing harm.
Yeah.
This is Lydia, who grew up in an abusive situation, learning how to navigate society in a way that will allow her to survive. And I'll give Thad this much. She at least believes Thad to be a good and kind man, which means at least he's not hitting her.
Yeah, he's not taking a piece of kindling to her.
Right.
There is,
and he does protest when Paladin even suggests that. So I'll give him that. But sadly, that is the bare minimum. Like, it's like he is so much of a little boy about this that he can't learn how to adequately express his feelings. I've never understood when I hear people say, "Oh, this guy, like at school, he keeps like pulling my hair and teasing me or making fun of me on the playground. Oh, that means he likes you." It's like, no, I don't want to hang out with somebody who treats me like that.
Yeah.
I think this is a situation where you've got a guy who doesn't have enough courage or gumption to say how he really feels about something because he's afraid that may make him look less manly. Therefore, he has to pay Paladin $1,000 to break up with his fiance for him.
Yeah, and it's almost like, okay, you're hiring Paladin to do this? It's like, what is plan B? Is it, oh, this guy's a gunslinger, so he could be a hitman?
Yeah, like, oh, if she doesn't take no for an answer, then I guess you'll just have to shoot her? I don't know why he decided Paladin was the man for the job for this, when really the only man for the job was him.
Yeah, I mean, none of that is really implicit in the script. But it presents a story logic issue.
Right.
Why is this the guy you're hiring? When, you could just hire any drunk off the street to come over to dinner and, that'll chase her away screaming forever. There are, I found some messages in here.
Go for it.
Messages about what we put up with for the sake of security, for the sake of acceptance, and perhaps what we shouldn't put up with for the sake of those things. There is momentarily a message about the systemic imbalance of what a woman can expect to earn for the same job a man is doing. As she saved up $300 whole. If Thaddeus can drop $1,000 like not even breaking a sweat, how little is he paying her that she's like, well, I saved up $300, and says it tearfully, like that's her life savings right there.
Yeah, it's everything she's got.
There is a lot here. It's almost too much for a half-hour show, and yet some of it doesn't really go deep enough. There are critiques of societal norms, not necessarily of the late 1800s, but of the mid-20th century, because women were unfortunately still in this terrible position.
Yeah.
The question I had trouble parsing was trying to figure out if these messages were intentional on Gene's part. And I will admit to a bias here. I want this to be a case where Gene is carving up Pygmalion into delicious slices of bacon that the audience is going to lap up and slipping them a message at the same time. I want this to be a case where Gene is some kind of genius because he has gotten this past the network censors in the guise of something that appears to be putting women in their place for the early 1960s, whatever the hell that means. And so that everyone who needs these issues brought to their attention, possibly including and especially the women in the audience, will swallow it. Kind of like that couple of years I spent having to pill a cat by putting her tiny little pills in the middle of a big dab of cheese whiz that she couldn't resist glomming off my finger. And then she'd get to the middle of it and she'd make this face like, and it'd be like, hey, guess what, kitty? You just got pilled. Maybe the messages were different for one segment of the audience than for another. I'd like to think Gene is that smart. What I couldn't discount completely from the tone of the thing, however, is the possibility that the writer, who is a man of his time, who was indoctrinated with notions of traditional gender roles, as we used to say, and gender normative behavior that we would now consider completely bass-backward, put these ideas in his show almost as much by accident as by design. I couldn't discount that possibility until you brought up that line where Lydia associates men being violent with weakness and not with strength. That's just enough for me to think, okay, maybe the messaging is totally intentional and very deliberate, and he really is having to tiptoe past the network censors or the producers on this. I am glad that this story lands in a place where Lydia gets to show she is the smartest person in a room. She's a fast study, but the student really outran the self-appointed master here, and good for her. That's what makes this maybe the least awful instance in the progression from Ella West to A Crisis Named Waveland to Madame Pharaoh. So, Gene, you finally got it close to right. I don't know if you were trying for perfect or not, but this is close enough. What if we stop rehashing this story now, please? Because this is like number 4 for this one.
Yeah.
And it may be the least offensive, but it doesn't really get to come out swinging. It's having to tiptoe.
And, Earl, I also have to wonder how much, because we don't have an original copy of the script, was there perhaps a stronger message here that maybe got edited out by production or by filming or whatever? I think back to, spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't seen it, season 2 of Stranger Things, finale of that particular season, where Murray Ballman, who's been brought in to help solve the mystery of Barbara Holland's death. And he finds out the truth that, oh, snap, she actually got eaten by a monster. Nobody's going to believe that. And he makes the comparison, because, he's aiding and abetting juvenile delinquency, offering vodka to both Nancy and Jonathan, saying, okay, take a sip of the vodka. Oh, that's too strong. Okay. What do? We add ice. We add club soda. We dial it down. Okay, that's a more palatable drink now, isn't it? How do we make, yes, Barbara was wrongfully killed by this company. How do we make the story more palatable? And I have to wonder, is this a story that got dialed down to make it more palatable for the audience? Did we have to put soda and ice in our vodka to make it a show that would make it to primetime?
A part of me really wants to believe that Gene was man enough to serve these guys vodka straight up, no rocks, nothing. Here, down this.
Yeah. We don't know who added the rocks and soda to this.
Shows have script editors. So
yeah.
It could be that some poor script editor saw this, whatever Gene originally wrote, assuming there is a difference. We don't have the original scripts or production paperwork, so we have no way to make that determination. Either because it wasn't retained in Gene's own files or it just hasn't been located yet, because it's a very long process. They're still going through all this stuff.
Yeah. So it's one where we can hope that maybe Gene submitted them vodka neat.
Yeah.
And story editing producer, somebody up top said, now we got to dial that back. We don't know.
Gene-ology is meant to be entertaining and informative, but it's also just the beginning of an ongoing conversation about the works of Gene Roddenberry. Drop us a line at missionlog@roddenberry.com and join us on Facebook at missionlogpod. And please remember, your comments could be used on future installments of Gene-ology. If you have any material that might be of interest to us that isn't already in the Roddenberry archive, drop us a line at missionlog@roddenberry.com. Our website is missionlogpodcast.com, and Mission Log Gene-ology is produced by Roddenberry Entertainment.
On the next Gene-ology, the Marshal of Sweetwater.
Special thanks to consulting producers Matt Esposito, Tom Kozak, Mike Richards, Mike Schabel, and Paul Shadwell.
We'll be back next week with more of your favorite programs. This concludes our broadcast day.
This is a Roddenberry podcast. For more great podcasts, visit podcast.roddenberry.com.